Hey everybody, it's Missy again. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm here with a new layout for the Paige Evans design team, and I'm going to be using her brand new collection. It's called Pick Me Up, and it is so beautiful. This is also one of her cut files. This one's called the Folk Art Flower cut file, and I went ahead and cut it on some white textured cardstock here. And I'm going to sort through the pattern papers of the collection and pick and choose some really fun bright colors to back the flowers and the stems and the leaves. And I've already cut into some of these papers for my previous layout that I made with all of the hearts. And so I'm going to use basically a lot of the same ones and just take some time to cut them down into little small shapes so I can back the flowers. And so I'm just cutting small portions of the papers. I don't have a lot from the collection yet. I have the papers and then some of the stickers and chipboard, but normally when I do a cut file like this that has a lot of small pieces, I tend to use the 6x6 papers because they're smaller. But I don't have the 6x6 paper pad, so I'm just going to cut into some of the big ones here and just pick through and look and find just the right spot on each paper that I want to use. And this is a really fun way to use up scraps or use up small increments. If you see this paper here, I've already cut into it, but there are a ton of little tiny, well, not little tiny, but there's squares and rectangles and all sorts of blocks of color. And you don't really need big areas to do this here. As you can see, the flowers and the leaves, everything is pretty small. And so you just need little bits of paper. You could do each piece a different color. What I decided to do was sort of look around and find multiple colors that I could use to back the flowers. My original plan was to do each flower a different color. Excuse me. But then I decided to just use multiple colors in each flower. That way everything would be nice and bright and I would have a lot of color going on all over the page. So the first flower up in the top right, I did half of it pink and half of it a red color with a yellow center. And so that's all I'm doing, is just kind of looking around and finding just the right color for each area. And so I took some time to do this. It didn't take too long, but it does take, I think it took more time to actually look through the papers and pick the areas that I wanted to use. But it's not a hard technique. You just need some glue, some scissors, and some paper, and your cut file, and there's a progress picture. I've got a lot of the flowers and the butterflies done, and I love how that looks. I love all the color. So this is a good way to get a lot of pattern on your paper also without it being too overwhelming. Now I decided to go with just one color for the stems and the small leaves, and I went with this gradient paper here. It goes from green to blue, and I'm going to use mostly the green side. And so I'm just going to stick down some adhesive and then stick it right on top of that paper. And then just go and trim off the excess. Because if I've learned anything, it's not to throw any scraps away, because I may make another page with a cut file that's perfect for the scraps that I have left over. So keep those for another project. Now I'm going to scrap. I actually wasn't sure at first if I was going to use 2 pictures or 1. And I decided to go with 1 because I didn't want to cover up a lot of this cut file. But I did want to add a little bit of mixed media. So I'm taking some white gesso, and I smudged a lot over there on the right because that's where my picture is going to go. And I'm going to use this one. This is actually an older picture of Paige. She was, I don't even think 2 yet, maybe just turned 2. She was a little bitty thing and she loved to swing. And so this kind of picture just kind of reminds me of her being wild and free, and that's what this cut file kind of reminds me of. Just the wildflowers growing all over the place and the butterflies kind of flying around, and I just thought it would be a good picture for this cut file. So I've got the gesso down, and I actually did smudge some on top of areas of the cut file just to kind of make it a little textured and to make a little bit of the areas lighter than some. And gesso is great for that because it's white and you can really change the look of a color just by adding a layer of gesso on top of it. So these are some of my shimmer sprays, and I'm just using a small piece of plastic and smudging the color down, and also using my brush to do some splatters. I just wanted a little bit of color coming out from behind the picture. I didn't want to go overboard and too crazy, and I didn't want to cover up a lot of the cut file. So I'm just sticking to this concentrated area over here on the right. I'm adding a little bit of a golden yellow color here, And then over on the upper left, in the direction that the flowers are growing, I wanted to just add some splatters. And so that's all I did there with the pink and the yellow. So now I've got the area done, and I love how that looks. And then I'm going to start to work on embellishing. I do have the chipboard sticker sheets and the regular sticker sheet, and so I'm going to kind of jazz it up just a little bit. I don't want to get too over embellished down here at the bottom, since the flowers are really the star of this layout. So I add a chipboard flower cluster and then another sticker from the sticker sheet here over on the right, just to kind of pull in all of the colors and just to add a little something around the photo. I decided to go through the embellishments, the die cut ephemera, and I decided not to use anything from there, but I am going to add a little bit of pattern paper behind the picture. And this is that same blue and green gradient paper. I cut a chunk of the blue, and then I'm going to cut a chunk of this yellow. And these are all the same papers I've already cut into. And this is why I say don't ever throw any of your scraps away, because you never know when you could use that perfect size for something small. So now I've got a little bit more of that darker blue color down here on the right, because I've got that blue color going on in some of the flowers, and of course the yellow. And since I've got those two colors already going, I'm going to pull in some pink thread, and I'm going to mix two colors together. I'm going to blend a darker pink and a more of a cotton candy type pink together and add that underneath the picture, just to pull in a little bit more of a pop of pink, add some texture and some more color. And then I'm going to do a little bit over on the right. And even though when I did all that mixed media, it looked like a big chunk of it, but now that I've got the picture and the flowers and everything on it, you can only see a little bit of it. And that's usually how it goes. That's kind of how I like to do it. I'm never sure how many embellishments I'm going to add. And so sometimes you need to create a bigger area of the mixed media or the paint or whatever it is that you're using, so it doesn't all completely disappear when you add everything on top of it. This is just some adhesive foam from my stash. I want to raise the photo up a little bit more just to give it some dimension, and then I'm going to glue it down. And I always want to make sure that everything sticks, especially when there's gesso or paint involved, because anything that's supposed to stick usually has a harder time sticking to the background, so I always add a little bit of extra glue if I've got gesso down there. I'm just adding a little bit more of the pink here just to make sure that you can see it. And then I went around each of the flowers with my machine, my sewing machine, in different color thread, and just did some wonky stitching. I went up and down some of the stems there, and then I made little trails coming out from behind the butterfly with white, and then I did circles around the big flowers. And I did the crooked stitching on purpose so it wouldn't look because I can't stitch a perfect circle to save my life. So if you do it crooked on purpose, then it's all good. So I'm going to use that Born to Fly sticker. That is from the sticker sheet. And then I'm trying to figure out what else to do for my title. I didn't want to go with anything truly, why did I say truly? Really colorful, because there's so much color going on. So I pulled out the mini thickers, and I'm going to use these. So I'm going to do sort of a tone on tone white here. And even though it's white on white, it's still very visible, and it's small. And I like the fact that it's white on white because it doesn't really take away from anything else, but yet you can still see it. And so I really like how that turned out. And I'm just going to title this Free Spirit. And I like the Born to Fly because she was swinging and kind of flying around in the swing, and her hair was definitely flying everywhere. And she just looked adorable. And she's still a free spirit to this day, that is for sure. And these thickers actually stuck really well to the paper, so I didn't have to add any extra glue to those, but I did make sure everything else was glued down. And I wanted to add more things because everything is so cute, but I really just didn't, because I felt like the cut file spoke for itself, and I just had enough going on. I didn't want to overdo it. So I'm going to add a little bit of journaling, and I think it's getting close to being done. Yeah, I'm going to add the date stamp. I just have a collection of older date stamps. Most of them, or some of them came from Michaels. Some of them are American Crafts. Just ones I've collected over the years. And then I'm going to add a little bit of gold. And of course, it landed right on the letters. Isn't that always the way it is? It always lands exactly where you don't want it. But anyway, I think this is going to wrap it up. I really love how this turned out. I think it's adorable. This cut file is awesome. You could make it larger, you could make it smaller. But there's the final layout. It's bright and it's fun. And it really did not take a lot of product. And so, you know, this is something that you could try if you just have scraps and a couple things. It was a lot of fun to do. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions. Be on the lookout for Pick Me Up. That's the name of this collection. It is beautiful. I promise you will not be disappointed because Paige has been making layout after layout already. So keep your eye open for those because everything is gorgeous. Everything is so pretty. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video. I hope you have a great weekend.